Hey,
Hey, how are you doing?
good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
So, I'm sure everybody listening and watching wants to know the process of reality TV. I want to know what inspired you to go on Married at First Sight and what was that casting process like?
That's still a question I kind of asked myself today is why did I actually decide to do it? So someone more or less reached out to me and a bunch of the other people in the DC area and kind of letting me know about this opportunity. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is freaking crazy. And I kind of looked into it and, it's super real. I've never heard of Married at First Sight before, but it's 10th season and everything like that. And I was like, all right, well, what do I have to lose? Let's leave it up to fate to decide. Let's see what life has in store for me because I wasn't really having too much luck on my own. And I figured, what's the worst that could happen? But I actually didn't think I would actually get selected. Once we got closer and closer to that moment, going through the entire selection process, and it started off with just a brief online questionnaire, like 20 questions, and then like a Skype interview, kind of getting to know me. And then it just went into like a 6-hour long online questionnaire. There's like some questions I'm like looking at for like 20 minutes, not sure what to do. There's a little bit of pressure with that, but I'm like, what are my top 5 values? What is the value? And just staring at some questions. But did that, finally got to the more or less the final selection round where me and 40 other guys, we were in a hotel conference room. We had the first time we've ever seen cameras, and they were doing a little like, one-on-one interviews, asking us questions. And I finally got to sit down with the experts individually and kind of talk to them a little bit and what my expectations and hopes were and everything. And came around for the second one, did a couple psych evals, background checks and everything. And I'm like sitting here looking around like, all right, there's 40 people here. They're going to pick 4 because we only thought there was going to be 4 people at the time. And I'm like doing the math is like, there's a 10% chance I could get selected. I should probably let my family know I might be marrying a stranger in 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, needless to say, they weren't the keenest on it. When I told my mom, and she's from Argentina, super Latina and everything, born and raised Catholic. And when I told her, I've never seen her get so mad. She literally kicked me out of the house, just cursing at me like no other in Spanish. I pretty much just had to give her a bear hug for like 30 minutes so she would actually listen to the words coming out of my mouth. And my dad was a little bit more understanding. He just kept saying, why the F are you doing this? This makes no sense. But that was more or less my selection process.
So, it seems like the selection process takes a while, but you're actually not with those people that you're, marrying, falling in love with for that long of a time. This might be kind of pushing the boundary to ask, but did you really, when you were in it, did you really feel like, oh my God, I'm in love with Katie and I'm going to marry Katie and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her? Or did you feel like, okay, I kind of won the show. I was successful in this show.
um, there, I'll go ahead and say there definitely was not a moment where I felt like I was in love with Katie's, like, wow, she's going to be the one. So I didn't have that moment. I got closer and closer. Like I did have like a crush on her for a while. I mean, I know it's a little silly to say, but I definitely saw a possibility of things working out. But the more we really kind of tested the waters, the vaguer that picture really became. And I mean, that's kind of how it was for the most part.
So is the marriage process and the divorce process real? Are they real processes that you go through? Is it a real marriage ceremony, a real divorce paper you have to sign? And I want to know, like, when you were doing those things, when you were marrying her and when you were divorcing her, what was going through your head at that time?
Um, I think the moment I remember the most is actually just standing up there waiting for her. And I'm up there for like 10, 15 minutes, just like telling myself, don't look nervous. Everyone's just staring at you. Act really, really calm. And the thought, my inner monologue was pretty much like, the entire time it never really hit me how crazy of a leap of faith I kind of took. And I'm just waiting for my bride to be to walk down the aisle. And I've never met her before. And I'm like, I literally like more or less sat myself down in my own mind and was like, Derek, you can never tell yourself that you are not crazy because this is crazy and you're crazy. But we're doing it. And it was those little moments right before I actually got married. But the a fun fact about the actual marriage ceremony and everything is 100% real, but what everyone sees on TV actually isn't the legal marriage, because in order to get legally married beforehand, you have to sign the marriage papers. And if we sign them beforehand, we see each other's names. So the very next morning after, we had the whole marriage ceremony, we went down to the Arlington courthouse, had the same exact priest with us. We were on the sidewalk, and we got married on the sidewalk in the span of 5 minutes. And then we walked back into the courthouse, stamped the papers, and that was our official legal marriage. But I take it that's not the best TV. But it was 100% a legal marriage. I was in the courthouse and everything, and I had to get it legally divorced as well. I think the last time I actually saw Katie was when we went to a UPS, of all places, to get our divorce papers notarized.
Does the show help you at least pay for like the wedding and the divorce?
Yes.
Okay.
So there was no real cost to me other than time and effort. But we didn't have to pay anything for the marriage. We didn't have to pay anything for the honeymoon, the staying where we did for the 9 weeks out in Pentagon City in DC, and we didn't have to pay for the divorce. It was all done by the production.
So be honest. Are you sad that it didn't work out, or are you looking back now like, I'm glad it didn't, I don't want to be married right now anyways?
I'd be lying to myself if I said I wasn't let down or kind of disappointed with the outcome of the process, but with the situations as they were and just kind of who I was paired with and everything, I don't look back and have any regrets, because going into this, the one thing I really told myself is that I'm going to give it my all from the get-go, just be 100% myself, because I don't want to look back and have any second thoughts. And I feel I can honestly say that's what I did. So I don't have any regrets about the outcome of it. I'm just a little disappointed with the outcome of the process, but not the situation.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you two were divorced before your actual season aired. Is that correct?
Legally, no.
But you were separated.
We were separated.
Did you watch the season? Was it difficult to watch it knowing that it didn't work out, but that fans and viewers of the show really wanted it to?
So there were definitely awkward times. So I didn't have too much of an issue watching it. So I did watch it, to answer your first question, because I had too much family and friends, harassing me about it. And I was kind of curious to see how it was, and more or less kind of get a little bit more insight on some of the other couples as well, because I only know what they tell me. When you see cameras everywhere, you get a little bit more. I suppose you could say one of the most awkward things about watching the show with the rest of America, when I already know the outcome, is having all those people reach out to you. It's like, oh my God, you guys are my favorite couple. Can't wait for you guys to work out. Oh, you got all my best wishes and everything. I'm like, thanks. It's like, yeah, she's really cool. And I think probably the part I wasn't really expecting that was a little hard were kind of seeing all of her interactions and all the things that she would say to the camera that I was never really aware of, or what she'd be saying to her friends and stuff. So a lot of those things kind of came as new things for me, which more or less just revalidated the fact that I made the right decision at the end of the day. But it was just seeing those things that I was never really aware that were going on in the background were a little frustrating.
That definitely makes sense. And I'm sure that you were probably in some type of contract or just have a good heart and didn't want to tell the people messaging you like, Actually, it doesn't work out in the end, so don't get your hopes up.
NDAs.
Yeah, NDAs for sure. But now that you are single in the sense of not married, you're a bachelor, I want to know, and I'm sure the people that are listening want to know what your actual ideal dream girl is. Who did you want to show up that day?
That's a question I still ask myself, but oddly enough, have answered the most. Anytime I've answered the question, I always feel like I sound like a hopeless romantic because I'm just putting these grand, beautiful kind of dreams out there with what I envision with someone. But I just feel like I can't do it justice without saying those things. And it's more or less like someone that can take well, I guess, first of all, someone that's funny, spontaneous, has a passion for adventure in life, someone that can take those little moments in life that are just like, boring, just waiting for a coffee at Starbucks or whatever it may be, and they turn into a memorable one just with like a funny interaction, or just the things that you can't really describe, but they just turn those bland moments into something more. Someone that I can wake up to and just kind of smile at. It's like, beautiful. And I guess someone that motivates me to be more than I am already. Someone that wants me to be the best me that I can be, because I would want to be, I would want them to be the best them they could be. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not just marrying someone to be with them or have a family. You're marrying a partner, a best friend, and hopefully, your biggest fan.
You have to go into shows like this with good intentions, which it sounds like you had good intentions. You even said it wasn't working out for me in real life. So I was like, why not give this a shot? But I think that you can find that person just by being yourself and doing the things that you love to do. Like you mentioned, you want a girl who's really adventurous. And I know that you recently took a trip across the US, so maybe she was on that trip. Maybe you came across her and you didn't even know.
I was
But I
looking.
yeah, right. I recently made a trip across the US too in an RV, which is very
Oh,
unlike me, but I had so much fun. It was like the best experience I've ever had in my life. That's how I moved out to California. I road tripped from Ohio with my family in a tiny RV with a big family. But I want to hear about your trip. How was it? Did you have a favorite stop? What was your favorite stop?
the reason for the road trip is because my best buddy for like 10 years or whatever is moving out to California, and we had to get his car out there. So the only way to really do that is to do a road trip. So we took 2 weeks to go across America, and more or less in a zigzag. We didn't go with any northern or southern route. It was like, we got 2 weeks, we can just do everything. So we went to start off in Nashville, went to Chicago, and then stopped in Kansas City, then Denver, Zion National Park. Uh, we ended up having to do an audible and went to Vegas because we had to leave Denver a day early because a blizzard was coming. And we just had a Toyota Camry. And literally when we left that morning, there was already 2 inches of snow on the ground. I was like, we got to get going. I think the scariest part about the entire trip was having to drive through the Rockies in the middle of a blizzard with a Toyota Camry. But at the same time, it was so beautiful and majestic. Like I'm just driving, I'm like, wow. Keep my eyes on the road and everything like that, because there were accidents, people were hydroplaning and everything, and I just really wanted to take in the scenes. And then after Vegas, went to Joshua Tree, and San Diego was our end destination. And throughout all of that, I think, well, at the very beginning, before the trip, San Diego was my favorite place in the U.S. Out of all the cities I've been to, I fell in love with San Diego and told myself I'm going to move out there at some point. And so that was why I was even more stoked to have that as the end destination. But on the process there, I truly fell in love with Chicago. Chicago is a beautiful city. The architecture is just unreal. The vibes, the food. I also love the cold. I mean, by cold, I mean I love the snow. Other than Chicago, which I fell in love with and loved going down the canals on the boat tours and everything, and just walking around. Side note, I don't know if it was the best idea or not to do a road trip in the middle of a pandemic, because while there are no lines for anything, half of everything is closed. But the other really memorable moment of that trip was Zion. Zion National Park was just breathtaking beyond words. And it's a pretty short hike up to Angels Peak is the specific hike I did there. It's only like a mile and a half. And for the first mile or so, you're pretty much just going up like a steep incline the entire way. And, it takes you maybe 20, 30 minutes to get to the top because it's pretty steep. And then when you get up there, you're like, all right, I made it to the top. And then you realize that there's literally just a cliff kind of just 5 feet, like maybe wide, if anything, that goes to a higher peak that's just supported by chains. And you just have people hiking up another half a mile up these chains. And I saw this and I'm like, that is scary as hell. I'm going to do it. And I'm so glad I did fought that kind of instinctual fear to actually do it. Because at the top of it, it was just one of those things that you only see when you watch Planet Earth, and you don't really, despite it being called Planet Earth, you don't picture it with Earth because it's not usually stuff that you see. And it was an amazing experience to really see that.
I'm from the Midwest. I hate the snow, and that's why I'm out here in California, besides obviously what I'm doing with entertainment. But my sister lives in Chicago and I'm from Ohio, so it's a really short drive. So I've been there a few times and I do love it. If it didn't snow so hard there, I would love Chicago. On my bucket list, what's next is Antelope Canyon. I really, really want to go kayaking there. I don't know if you've ever seen the photos, but I totally understand what you're saying, because there are just moments, and I had the same realization when we were driving out here. First of all, I agree about the pandemic. I mean, we were more trapped in that RV than ever because nothing was open. So it was really outdoor attractions, which if you're doing Route 66 is fine because a lot of it's outdoors, which is what we did. But yeah, when we did our stop in the Grand Canyon, we did it because it's like, everybody does this stop, we should do it. But walking around there, I have never seen anything like that before. And I wanted to take pictures to show my friends and people back home, but nothing compared to like actually being there. I think what you're trying to say about Planet Earth, the movie, is that you don't realize how small you are until you're in a situation like that, because these pictures of the Grand Canyon, you see this like crack in the earth. But then when you're standing in front of that crack and you literally can't see the bottom, you're like, oh, I'm so small. Like there's so many people here and I'm so small, and it's so beautiful. And I had the same type of moment when I visited LA for the first time in high school. When we hiked all the way up to the tallest peak in the Santa Monica Mountains, it's very similar. It's like a rock and you go lay on it stomach first. There's nothing supporting you and you just have to lean over the edge, and it's just like a drop. I kind of thought, like, in that moment, I was like, this is something that I want to have moments like this all my life. And out here in California, in San Diego, there's places like that. You're really close to the Grand Canyon. You're really close to Vegas, Santa Monica, Malibu, all these places to have experiences like that. So I totally get it. Road tripping was the last thing on my bucket list, and it was the last thing on your bucket list, and we both accomplished it. So for me, I'm going to Antelope Canyon next on my bucket list. I want to know what's next for you on yours.
So next on my bucket list is owning a business. Oddly enough, yeah, it's something I've always wanted to do, and it's not going to be some grand business endeavor or anything, but something that I can call my own. And it's something me and my buddy who I actually went on the road trip with, we kind of started together. And in the state of Virginia, it is a 100% real business. We got the papers and everything all finalized. And it's just kind of doing the final little things before we make it public.
Well, when your business goes public and becomes huge, you can come back on the show and talk all about your business instead of the show.
I would love to.
I really like to end each episode just with something positive, whether that's what's going on in your life that's positive or something positive you took away from being on Married at First Sight. So can you just share something kind of cool with the audience?
Yeah. Now that we are done with 2020, and it's now a month into 2021, I'll admit that the past 4 months or so, I've just been grinding at work and everything, and it's just kind of been a little bit of a slump with it. But I just, in this like last week, I've actually been feeling great, looking forward to everything that's going on. Got a little bit of a promotion at work, so that's great. They're actually sending me out to Japan for a month next month. So I get to do some continental travel in the middle of a pandemic, even though I have to spend 2 weeks in Tokyo in a hotel. And so that's something I'm super looking forward to. And I guess my last thing I'd add on is that because I am intrinsically kind of selfish when it comes to a lot of my bucket list things and a little greedy, I set a goal for myself as well, because I got an astonishing amount of support and just people reaching out to me in regards to a Christmas song. People wanting me to write a Christmas song because I mentioned it as one of the crazy bucket list things I'd like to do at some point in time. Some point in time was the key word of that sentence. But I had so many people like, where's the Christmas song? When's it coming out? I'm like, well, this is something I was going to do in like 5 years, but it's now gotten to the point where like I've already like half written the song and everything. Now I got to put it's just the words. But I've kind of set a goal for myself to actually have it produced by Christmas time. And we'll see how it is.
You know what's so funny is I reached out to my friend who follows you as well, and I was like, what questions do you have? What would be something great that you'd want to know? As a fan of the show, what would you want to know? And that is actually what she wanted me to talk about. The Christmas song. She was like, ask him when it's going to be done.
Yeah,
So
I'm like,
everybody that's wondering, here's your update. It's halfway there. I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, potentially where they can learn about your business once it's finished, and where are you going to go with this song? Where will they be able to get it?
in order to find me and more or less where I'm at, it's at Instagram and with the handle DRockingSherm. That's more or less my handle for all my platforms for the most part, because thankfully no one else has taken DRock. For my company, I'll go ahead and say the name of the company is going to be called True Compass. And there will be a heavy emphasis on motivational things and inspiration. I will leave it with my last thing as the Christmas song. Gosh darn it, it's going to get on Spotify. That's the goal here. All right, we're going for Spotify, and I won't settle for less. Or maybe SoundCloud for a little bit, but then Spotify.
You're going to get there, I promise. I am on Spotify as a podcast, so you will definitely get there as a Christmas song, especially if you release during Christmas time. I have faith.